Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Carry On Friends, the Caribbean American Experience. And I'm excited because I am going to talk about a topic that I love, but can you believe it? I've never covered it on the podcast. And so, before I get into what that topic is, Darren, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing well, and
All right.
thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. All right. So, why don't you tell the community of friends a little bit about who you are, Caribbean country you represent, and the work that you do?
Sounds good. So, I was born and raised in New York, but raised in a Caribbean household. My mom from Jamaica and my dad from Guyana. And I've been an athlete and a sports fan my whole life, which has prepared me and led me to my current venture, Backcourt, which is a sports community rooted in the business, the culture, and the celebration of the Caribbean.
Wonderful. All right. So you played sports. What kind of sports did you play?
So I told you my mom is from Jamaica. I started running track and field when I was 4 years old.
As you should. As you should. Oh, continue.
And by the time I was 10 years old, I told her I wanted to retire and switch to basketball. So I ended up becoming a serious basketball player and played up and through college and was the captain of my team. And now I'm a semi-retired athlete, I would say.
So I probably need to have a conversation with you because my son is running track and I see that basketball is moving in on track, and I always ask him, "What did you do today, basketball? So I'm to track." Like any self-respecting Jamaican parent wants to know where is track in the sports lineup, right? So
Right.
this is awesome. All right, so we're gonna get more into backcourt. We're gonna get more into what you do. So everyone, we're talking about sports. Do not pause. Do not switch. Do not move. Stay right here. I love that you said that you were doing track from you were four. So story time. I grew up in Jamaica. I went to high school in Jamaica, a good part of high school in Jamaica. PE at school, all you do is track. And so I've had a love for track. Track is such an important aspect of my childhood growing up. So was soccer. There was cricket, but me never really too into cricket because it was boring. But the cricket of today is, let me tell you, is a fit. So we're gonna get into that. Um, so what really caught my eye, your mom shared something with me, and I wanted you to talk about it, which is sports tourism. What is that really? You talked about sprinting as the future, especially for Jamaica and the Caribbean at large. The Olympics is coming up, which is beer excitement. If you don't have your Dutchie cover ready, something is wrong. Okay, all right, sorry. And then cricket, all of this is happening, and it's an exciting time for sports in general, but sports specifically that most Caribbean countries participate in. So tell me a little bit about what the energy you're seeing and the place that backcourt is trying to take up in this space.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of exciting movements in the sports space that make it seem like backcourt is divine timing. And I'll start with sports tourism because I think that is a topic that doesn't get a lot of attention, but it should because it's a $500 billion industry. And what it really means is when folks either travel to participate in or travel to watch sports. So the Olympics would be the ultimate sports tourism experience, but it could also be, traveling down to Florida to participate in a track meet or going with friends on a golf trip.
So, all right, sports tourism as it applies to Jamaica. Does that mean going to Jamaica for boys and girls champs?
That would be a sports tourism experience, yes. And that
Okay.
is something Backcourt is working on, so stay tuned.
Let me tell you, I mean, I grew up where you went to champs and it was a huge deal. Like when I was in high school in Jamaica, D Cup, which is the boys soccer tournament at the particular part of Jamaica I was from. I mean, this is not just kids going to the thing. It was a center of social life for adults as well. Like, you know, they were going to their alma mater or whatever. They were like all of this to say that sports is a huge deal, and we watch it on TV, which, by the way, I technically can't watch it on TV because I'm not going to call no names because I don't want them to come do whatever to me. But I don't get to watch and experience sports from a Caribbean perspective. I only get to see it from an American perspective because all the commentators are really focusing on American athletes, as they should. We live in America, right? But I always felt like I would love to be in Jamaica around Olympics or World Champs, or something where there is going to be Caribbean media. There's a Caribbean commentator, something. And so, since most of us won't get that, how can we experience or regional athletic events that feels like it's not so Americanized? There is a Caribbean view to that. How do you think we can get to experience those things?
I think it's a two-part problem. On one side, you have to first educate people about looking at the Caribbean as a sports destination, as a sports market. And then I think the other side is immersing them in the culture. So you can describe the energy and the excitement of champs, but it's another thing to actually be there and smell the jerk chicken and hear all the steel drums. That's a different vibe than just, watching it on television. So I think it's both education and immersion.
It's interesting because I felt like there was some interest in champs when Usain and the Jamaican team came on the scene in 2008. And did that like peak and fall off because Usain is no longer competitive? I still feel like they go for the Racers Grand Prix, but I don't know if the interest is as high as it was when Usain was performing. Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, I would agree. The interest was definitely highest with Usain Bolt. Having a sprinter, especially in the 100 meters, who's very charismatic and has a bold personality, helps to make him marketable and drives more sponsorship dollars to the sport, and more eyeballs to the sport. When someone is succeeding in, maybe the steeplechase or the 800, it might not be as exciting for viewers and not as easy for them to understand. When someone's the fastest person in the world, it's easier for them to see this is a spectacle that I should tune into.
Got it. Got it. All right. So we're going to get into a little bit more about why you started this, but story time again. A couple weeks ago, I was at my friend's house and her mother in law was watching IPL, right? It was the two biggest teams in India. There were cheerleaders, there were like, NFL, the cameras on the zip line doing all the things, the instant replay. I was just like, this is not the cricket I grew up with. So my husband was like, "Oh, this reminds me of Red Stripe Mound." I left Jamaica long before that came about. But I don't know if you're familiar with Red Stripe Mound. So it was a few years ago where Red Stripe, it's cricket, but they had a party. Basically what I was watching on IPL. IPL is Indian Premier League, for cricket. Cuz cricket is huge. Cricket is huge in any country where the British colonized. So it was so interesting to see the upgrades to cricket and how massive of a sports this is, obviously to India and of course its large population, but also in the Caribbean because T20 and all that stuff is happening. So could you tell the community of friends a little bit more about cricket, why we should be paying attention, even if you're going for the fetting and the party and what that's about?
Yes, yes. And I'm here with you. I originally wasn't drawn to cricket because I remember my dad staying up late to watch cricket matches on Cricinfo, and it would take 3, 4, 5 days for a match to finish, and I could not. I
Yes,
did
the
not have the
test
patience.
matches, like 5 test straight. Like, how much tests we doing? Like, stop. Like, cricket matches used to be whole 20 days. I'm sorry. I may be exaggerating, but not really. But it was really long. So go
That's
ahead.
what,
Sorry.
yeah, that's what it felt like to me too. And with T20 cricket, it's a few hours long. You can see the excitement. It's built for viewership and built for streaming. And with the Indian Premier League, which is the premier T20 league in the world, it's showing how interested fans are and how massive the potential of the sport is. The championship for the Indian Premier League was the most viewed sporting match on the internet of all time, more than the Super Bowl, more than any other event that we can think of. And the investment from the Indian Premier League is also expanding to the rest of the world because you have multiple Indian Premier League teams that are invested and owning Caribbean Premier League teams.
Not only that, when I was watching that IPL game, I saw a few black players. I was like, "Wait, what's going on here?" And so my friend's mother-in-law was like, "Yes, that guy in play for the West Indies cricket team." So the rule is, if it's an Indian Premier League, but them can have six foreigners at max on the team. I was like, say what? She's like, yes. So when they're not playing over here, they can go over there because they pay enough money. That's what she said. And I had to look it up. The IPL is valued at billions. It's considered what, a decacorn, because it's not a
Yes.
unicorn, a decacorn. I was like, wild. So given that, what is the future and the potential for cricket? Because here in Brooklyn, out by Gateway, you will see them out there playing cricket sometimes on the lawn. So, what does that mean for the Caribbean diaspora and cricket and the region? And what about somebody who's like, I've never understood cricket, I do not like it? Like, talk to me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think when we think of cricket in North America, it's something that the sport has been trying to make happen for a long time. But the reality is the immigrant population is the one who's really leading that charge. The immigrant communities who still play, who still watch the sport, I think those are going to be the folks that we have to lean on to understand the sport, to get a sense of what it means to be a fan for a particular team or for your country. Um, and especially when you think about the diaspora, the Caribbean was at one point the best team in the world when it comes to cricket. So I think now is the perfect time with the World Cup coming up for us to retake that crown.
I don't know, but I mean, this is all very exciting, and to me, I just love it because to experience a sporting event as a Caribbean person, whether in the region or here, is a completely different experience. It's a party, for one. Like it is a party. Ever since I grew up, you're going to the football match or the soccer match. It's a party. It's a party before, a party during, and a party after. And cricket was, based on what my husband said about the Red Stripe Mound, because I was living here by the time that was happening. I mean, they were must have tickets because it was, everyone was there, all the hottest, latest were there. And then for track and field, everyone was there. So it's like, how do we how do we begin to recapture some of that energy, and where is Backcourt coming in to kind of fill in this gap?
Yeah, I think on one side, we have to again look at sports not just as a party or as entertainment, but also as a business.
Yeah.
And where we put our eyeballs and where we invest our dollars, we will see that come out in growth for the sport. And where Backcourt comes in is really spotlighting how sports tourism can elevate the Caribbean economies. If you think about tourism in the Caribbean, 80% of tourism dollars actually go offshore. But when you think about investing in the Caribbean Premier League and investing in champs, that's a way to invest in the people who actually live there and elevating, the accommodation partners and the transportation partners, the food and beverage vendors. Those stays in the Caribbean end up making a larger impact than your visit alone.
Okay. So we know you loved sports, of course. Carmia Barnia did have to love it. Uh, I don't know if you had a choice. Um, but why specifically did you start this business? What was the impetus? What was that thing that says, I'm going to start this business? So what was that?
Yeah, so it really goes back to when I went to business school. So I talked about being an athlete, but when I was playing basketball in college, I studied computer science. I was a coder for a bit, and then I realized I wanted to learn more about investing. And once I put that investor hat on and started to look at sports as an asset class and the different industries within sports and the different geographies within sports, I really saw an untapped opportunity with not only the Caribbean market regionally, but also within the subsector of sports tourism. So that's why Backcourt was founded.
So what are some of the things that you have going on? I feel like um all right, here's a good example. During the final four, right? You had the regular game on one channel with the regular analyst and color commentator. And then on the other channel, you had two former WNBA players who were shooting the breeze. They had different people come on talking about the game, but they really weren't doing the analysis in the traditional way, right? I feel like we need something like that for the Olympics coming up because, boy, it's going to be exciting. Is there a market for that? I mean, I know it's challenging because of um, media rights for like Olympics and stuff like that, but is there a market? We are Caribbean American. I think the closest we have to something where he doesn't do this, but the closest we have to it is really Atta Bolden and on TV, kind of, having the knowledge about what's happening in the region and can speak to it. We don't really have um that media like within the US. Is there, as you look to grow the Caribbean sports or sports as a business for the region and relying on the diaspora, is there an opportunity for that kind of space also? Because remember, watching sports is one thing, the media to engage the audience is a whole another thing. So what does that space look like?
There's definitely an opportunity there. I mean, when you think of even the American sports landscape and all the side casts that you have for the NFL and all the different tailgating opportunities and watch parties, I think we just have to build around that core property, which is the match itself, and show people what it looks like to have a party before the match, or an announcer who's from the Caribbean talking about his home team. And something that we're actually doing for the World Cup coming up is a giveaway for tickets to the USA versus India match, to again show folks, we have a lot of USA Caribbean or Caribbean Americans and also a lot of Indo Caribbeans. So there's a nice overlap there where we can show folks how the Caribbean can actually have an impact there.
Wonderful. All right. So now I want to get to this article that your mother had sent me. From Jamaica to the World: Why Sprinters Are the Future of Track and Field. Talk to us. What I mean, we know this, but you're the expert here. So, me bias, everybody's gonna say you're the Jamaican, you obviously. But speak, you're the expert here. Why did Backcourt put out such a piece?
I mean, we talked about Usain Bolt and how he brought in so many eyeballs to the sport. Um, at one point, he was one of the highest paid athletes in the world, and he was the only track athlete to do that. And it's because of his personality and because of the race he was competing in. So what we're seeing now is other investors investing in sprinters. Serena Williams' husband, Alexis Ohanian,
I just saw that.
who's also the founder of Reddit, he invested in a new women's only track invitational that's meant for sprinters, so that folks can see, the story behind some of the top athletes in the world. And Michael Johnson, who's another legendary track athlete, he's also starting another competition for sprinters. And I think it simplifies the programming, so folks don't have to tune
Wait,
into
so
a 4-hour meet. They can just say, okay, this is 10 seconds where I need to pay attention to see who's the fastest person here. And it's easy for them to understand. And it's easy for sponsors to say, okay, I can plug in here, either with an athlete or with a broadcaster or with a venue. So I think sprinters are the future because it's something that everyone can relate to. And, there's millions of runners in the world, but for some reason, there aren't millions of viewers for running.
right, right. And I mean, it also eliminates, I don't know if it eliminates, but the rounds, can drag something. And then this false start rule, which I do
Oh
not
my
think it's
goodness.
working. I think it slows the game down even more because they take about 20 minutes to see if it really was a false start. I'm just like, he barely flinched. So So, I mean, I do understand that in a way, sometimes you want to speed up the viewing experience. Um, but in what way do we grow the programs that feed into the sports, right? So America has very strong programs for basketball, for football, for baseball, but not very strong programs for track. I know my nephew wanted to do track, but there's just not really enough of those. My son wants to do that. He did it in middle school. I mean in elementary school. He's in middle school now and his middle school only has a girls team and I said train with them. And the teacher was like, "Are you sure he doesn't want to play basketball? Do you sure he wants to train with the girls?" I'm like, "Let him train with those girls. I do not care. He is running track and he's getting his body track ready. Period." And they're like, "Okay, he's trying to recruit other boys to help build a boys track team." But again, the what can we do about these infrastructure to feed the teams because those programs aren't getting funded at all from a US level. In the Caribbean, there's more than enough feeder schools for that, but in the US, there's nothing really to engage them or there's not as many. So talk to me about what you're seeing in terms of, programs that the feeder programs for like these different track meets or any of the sporting events that Caribbean people really love. Like, who's teaching these young people cricket? Like, who's gonna
It's
teach
an
them for liquor six? Like
I
so.
think I think you're spot on. It's an infrastructure issue. Um, on one side, you have a younger population, a younger generation that probably wants to learn the sport, but they have to see it first. They have to see, their favorite athletes or their favorite runners, in their market doing well, in ads. But the problem is a lot of the times the track meets are only in Oregon. They're not in New York or Atlanta or Los Angeles. So how are you going to get someone who's trying to figure out what sport to play to run track if they have to go to Oregon to see the top athletes and it's not on television? Um,
Or
it's
if it's
it's an
on
infrastructure.
television, it's not on a program that it's not on a channel that may you may watch. Even as we're recording this, Penn Relays was a few weeks ago. And if you're not in the know in the Caribbean culture, you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, I miss Penn Relays because it's not very well marketed. I know my son would have loved to go, but we had an event. We had prior commitments that weekend. But again, I think it's for if you're in the Northeast, I think that's a easy way to experience it because the Jamaican schools come up and they might as well call it Boys and Girls Champ Part 2. That's what I keep saying. Ped Relays. That's all it is. Champs Champs 2 US version. That's
Yes.
it. But I mean, we don't do a good job of even promoting them because even when Usain broke the record at Icon Stadium in 2008, there wasn't a lot of people over there at all. I mean, I knew it was happening, but you just like you don't go. You just watch it on TV, and then everybody hears about it. So, what role can all of us play in amplifying the sports when our athletes from or wherever country we come from are coming here? How do we get that word out? Like, yo, they're in New York or they're gonna be in Florida. I mean, for everywhere else, sorry, I'm not unlucky. Basically, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm not being arrogant, but it's the truth. They're either coming to New York or they're going to Florida, or they may be in LA. They may be in LA. There is a street race in Boston, but again, are you creating like or curating a list of these meets events where people are showing up? So and if that's it, if that's part of what you're offering, now is the time to tell the people them to subscribe to your Substack newsletter so they could get all of that. So go ahead. I mean, I'm rambling because I mean I'm talking about things that I love, but it's also like I know what the deficiencies are. Like, give me a list of all the meets that are coming up that are not just American focused, right? There we know that our Caribbean athletes are participating in these events, right? Because the ones of Caribbean heritage who are running for America, we know them already, or we know that they're going to show up here. So, but where are they? How do we circulate them? How do we get tickets? Because I feel like when we find out, it's too late. Or even if we can't go, is this is this on TV? So what I do is I just have, I'm not going to call no name. I have the one Dege Dege Sports Channel. You and I know who they are, right? And anything that says track and field just automatically records on my DVR because it's most likely something that we want to watch. So tell me, how is Backcourt trying to fill some of these gaps and deficiencies for sports fans like me?
Yes, so I recognize the same issue that you did, where we don't know what the Caribbean sports calendar looks like. So I actually created one. You can go to gobackcourt.com and we have the calendar there, and you'll see every event from champs to Penn relays to the Olympics and everything in between. But I think a part of bringing eyeballs to these events is the storytelling around it. I saw one of the up and coming US track and field athletes, Noah Lyles, talk about how we need to have a runway for the athletes. We need to have a post game party for the athletes. So you're not just going for the meet, you're going to see your favorite athletes, and there's more storytelling behind.
He gets that from champs because that's all that champs is. That's
Yes.
really what champs is. We going in there. All right, who are you rooting
What are
for?
your colors?
Yeah, where you which school you go, right? Like you already know that, and especially for those who are not from Kingston, like we're from the schools what them call in the country, we showing up. We're coming in the buses. It's a party. So I think the Caribbean has a template of how they do this. The American athletes go and they see the fanfare and they're like, wait a minute, this ain't happening over her. How do we get this over her? Like it is a, if you, I'm sure you've gone, the National Stadium, it's electric, like literally when it's champs. Like it's the reason why it's been around for however long it has, and it's the center of sports life. But and that's why Penn Relays, I call it Champs US edition, because that's what happened. You pan to the crowd, there's a whole section in
More
green and
Jamaicans
yellow.
than Americans.
Yes, there's more Jamaicans than Americans at Penn Relays. There's a whole field with a party and Jamaican brands. So it's an example of what is possible. But again, we have to know in order to show up. Because if we don't know, we're not going to show up all loud and be like, "Rah, rah." That would be
you,
me.
you brought up Penn relays again, so I have to insert myself for story time. So I did retire from track and field when I was 10, but when I was in high school as a junior, my high school decided to start a track team, and they said, "We know you're Jamaican. We know you ran in track when you were younger. Can you be the captain of our team?" We went to Penn relays. I was in the 4x1. I am not a 100-meter runner. And there were 3 Jamaican schools in our heat, and I've never felt slower in my entire life. I thought I was running backwards.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's, all right, let's clap it up that the school recognized the excellence that was already in your blood because you're Jamaican and gave you the de facto, lets you be the captain of the team. But also just just like you said, like when you see them, you're just like, wow. But track is to Jamaica what basketball is for kids here.
Yes.
Like it takes nothing to run. As a kid, running is like, okay, you don't need expensive equipment, you don't need anything. You just need, all right, I'm going to race you down there. So on your mark, get set, go. And that's it. And it takes nothing for a crowd to form because this is what kids are doing. So you're running in the street, you're running at PE, you're running wherever, and that's the thing. Every Jamaican school has a sports day, right? And when I used to tell people like, Harry Potter and all the houses. I'm like, oh, that's normal. That's like school in Jamaica. They're like, what? I'm like, yeah, the school is divided into houses and everybody's in a house with a color. And on sports day, we compete. And they're just like, okay. I'm like, it's the best thing. So if you're either in red house, yellow house, blue house, green house, right? That's it. Right? And they all have a name and you compete. Even all girls school, we had to compete. And I think that is the feeder for the level of competition that we have because we've learned that from the smallest kid that you're going to whatever school you're going to have a sports day, you're going to compete and competing is normal.
Right, right. And even from an athlete standpoint, if you're someone raising children in the States and you want them to be competitive at their sport, what better foundation than to teach them how to run properly? Because when you go to basketball, when you go to football, what's your punishment? Running. And if you can run fast, they can teach you the skills, but they can't teach speed.
This is very true. This is very true. All right. So, as we wrap up, tell me what's coming up with Backcourt. How do people support you and the work that you're doing? Tell us more about what you have in store.
Yes, so the media arm is up and running. You can follow us and subscribe to us at Go Backcourt on Instagram, and our website is gobackcourt.com. The tourism side is launching later this year, which I'm really excited about. I mentioned we have a giveaway for the USA versus India cricket match in New York. We're also going to be doing a golf trip to Montego Bay in Jamaica. And the last one is we'll be doing packages to St. Lucia for the Caribbean Premier League matches as well.
Wonderful. Listen, when I was in high school in Jamaica, the Johnny Walker that used to be in
Invitational.
December, yeah, was like a huge thing. Oh my gosh. Yes, yes. Oh, Lord. I tell you.
I'm
No,
hoping it can be an annual thing where, everyone comes out to Jamaica to play golf for a week.
that is very exciting. Are you going to see any of the trials for as Olympics is coming up? Anything around Olympics? Are you doing anything around Olympics for the later down in the whole time when track get relegated to be on the stage because swimming take up the whole first week and stuff like you know
I'll I'll definitely be creating content around the Olympics and especially around track and field. But in terms of a track and field event, I'm really looking forward to Champs next year and building that up to be an exciting opportunity for folks who've never been to Jamaica or never experienced Champs to see what it's like to have track and field be the premier event in the entire country.
Wonderful. Listen, tell me oh we can partner because you already know me. I have a video I could send with my son running, and my husband's like, go over there. Do not come near me with this. You're you're acting. And then I sent my friends the video and they're like, you're telling Ethan to run like anyone is behind him. And I said to him, track is an individual sport. Your time is what you make. So I don't care if no one's behind him. He gotta run like somebody's behind him straight through that line because his time is what clearly I'm an intense track mom, okay? But this is the foundation by which
Yes,
you have this Jamaican bravado that we supposedly have. Not supposedly, it really
we
exists.
have
It
it.
it exists. It's real. It's real. Because we learn it from early. But Darren, this was so much fun. Maybe I was talking a lot because I'm geeking out over sports, but I'm glad to see you doing this. And I'm glad that we have an opportunity to really grow. I was very excited when I saw some people do some sports podcasts. So maybe that's is in your future too. But
Yes, yes, I like that. I like that. Some small teasers.
some small teasers, and you will have me on there talking about what kids should be doing.
Yes.
Or the soccer programs the kids should be going to. But anyway, Um, but I'll definitely put in the show notes where everyone could connect with you and any other information that they should have. Guys, this is our culture. We're not just music. We're not just partying. We are not just movies. Caribbean brings everything, and sports is one aspect that we have on the map, and we need to like really take up space. Like, now make them think we're small, we're little, but we're Talawa, you know? I mean, how many athletes out here that are really amazing athletes who have Caribbean heritage, not to mention the ones who are running under on their individual Caribbean flags. So, sports is a huge part of our culture. Support the thing. Sprint of the future, support the thing. Backcourt is bringing you to the future. So, support his thing. And until next time, walk good.
Thank you so much for having me.